Welcome back to Inside South Florida. And now that your children are back at school, what legal rights do you have if they're injured while at school or on the way there? Here's attorney Kevin McGill with GMV Law Group. Kevin, my friend, good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you too.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So kids are going back to school, right? So unfortunately for parents, you know, probably a stressful time because there's a million things that unfortunately might go wrong, right? So,
Absolutely.
Right. So we're going to talk about some of the sort of like legal recourse that parents might have in case of some of those things. Cool?
Absolutely.
So the first thing we're going to start off with is an accident. If your child's involved in an accident on the bus on the way to school, what might you be able to do as a parent?
There's a couple things. There's school bus accidents and there's carpool accidents.
Okay.
So there's two different types that you could have. With the school bus accident, while they are both similar in how they should be handled, the school bus accident is different because the parent typically is not going to be there. There's not going to be any other parents. The other thing is that there's no parent with a cell phone. It's a little bit more difficult for the child or for the parent to then get to the school bus as well. Additionally, in the school bus situation, the police officers have already been called. When you arrive to the scene is when the parent is going to actually have something to do. Now, when you get there, the very first thing you should do is always make sure that your child's okay.
Sure.
Most importantly. When that happens and you've made sure that your child is reasonably all right and doesn't need medical assistance, then you would want to make sure, check them out further. There's no bruises, black and blue marks, broken bones, injuries. Sometimes the children's adrenaline is kicked in and it's difficult for them to convey to you what's wrong.
Right.
Find that out. The police are already going to be there. Don't be afraid to walk up to an officer and ask them for a copy of the police report.
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay, so you should get that.
Documentation is very important.
Right, and so you sort of just touched on this a minute ago. Should you make sure that your child gets a physical examination?
That's the first thing you should do when you leave the scene from where the bus is. Now, if the child is actually injured severely or even if they're just being precautious, they may already be at the hospital when you arrive, they may be in an ambulance on the way. If not, it is very important that after that incident you take your child to a general practitioner, to whoever you're comfortable with, the emergency room, some sort of doctor to have them checked out.
Okay. We have a bunch of these, because we could probably spend 8 minutes on just that, but
Absolutely.
we have a lot of things to cover. So carpool, what's different there?
With any of these situations, really what you want to do is focus on what we at GMV Law Group think are the 5 most important things you should do. And the carpool situation is the same as the bus.
Okay.
As soon as the incident happens, always want to make sure that the person's all right. Then, once that happens, you want to seek medical attention. It's very important that you document the injuries in these situations. The insurance companies are going to try to fight, and if you have the ammunition, you have the medical reports, and you've seen a doctor, it's the best possible way. Second thing you want to do is, if 911 hasn't already been called, if there's no police already there, is make sure that the police come and evaluate. We do a lot of this stuff. The police officers are not in a hurry to do more work than they have to, okay? What you don't want to do is let them talk you out of making an incident report or documenting the injury. You really want to make sure that that officer makes a report and that you're standing there. Don't be afraid to give him input into that report.
Okay.
Get a copy of that report. Next, when you're done there, you really want to contact an attorney, all right? First and foremost, the insurance company has an interest in settling the case quickly and quietly. So you really want to have a lawyer right off the bat. They're going to contact you, the insurance company is going to contact you. They're going to be recording those calls. They're going to ask you questions that you may think are innocuous or that don't mean anything, but could wind up hurting your position later. Retain an attorney, let them do the talking for you.
Okay, well, that's great. I mean, and that's really applicable to all of these things, or most of these things.
Across the board.
All right, I want to skip around a little bit. What about accidents at school? Okay, well, tell me about a playground accident. What should a parent do?
It's a little bit of a different situation. Most kids are going to be going to public schools. In the situation where it's a private school is a little different. But
okay.
In the public school situation, same thing. You want to make sure that you're always documenting the injury. Make sure that you have copies of everything, whether it be from the nurses, the teachers, whatever reports there are, and always, always, always follow up with a physician or a doctor after the incident.
Okay, so again, a lot of this stuff's applicable. Are the schools going to always call you? I mean, so if your child falls off the swing set or whatever, obviously you want the school to call you. If they don't, you may not even find out about it, right? Because I know, like, when I was a kid, I'd get bumps and bruises all the time. Probably never told my parents about half of them.
There's a lot of situations where the school may not call. And it may not be the school trying to hide anything, it's just the kids showed pain differently.
Right.
One kid could have a broken bone and not feel anything. Another kid could have a bruise and be in the worst pain ever. So if you're not called and notified by the school that day, when your child gets home and complains of pain or says that an incident happened, even if they're not complaining of pain, always make sure to follow up with a physician and have that documented.
Right.
And don't be afraid to call the school, ask for any teachers that were around, any witnesses that were there. Witnesses are really a parent's ammunition going forward with the insurance companies, because everyone has a different version of the story. It's impossible for every version to be the same, especially parents know this. I mean, their kids tell them a million different stories.
I think the takeaway on what you're saying on a lot of this is, you know, no one's going to go out of their way, like you said earlier, to do more work to help you, whether it's a school or a cop or a bus driver or whatever. So I think a lot of the responsibility falls on the parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have time for one more of these. This one's interesting too. If your child is walking to school or biking to school and they get bit by a dog, I thought that was an interesting one. Or we can talk about, you know, if they slip on the way to school, anything getting, you know, to the school.
South Florida has an interesting law where there is no free bite, as it's referred to in Florida. When a child or anyone, if anyone is bitten by a dog while walking, it is it's referred to as strict liability, meaning that the owner of that dog is on the hook for any injuries that may result from it. So you really want to make sure that, again, document the injuries, any witnesses that may be around, get the owner's information. If you can, check the dog's tag. Any way that you can find out whose animal that is.
Right, interview the dog if you have to.
If you have to.
Might be a short interview, but at least you've tried. All right, so Kevin, if people want to reach out to you or any of your partners over at GMV, how do they find you?
1-888-GMV-7200.
1-888-GMV-7200. So easy. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
You got it.